I've managed to get some paint on the doors, done both faces twice. I need to do one more coat, and I've done no special treatment on these handles with a roller or anything like that. The spray has done all of that. The extra coats went on, but it's turned out really, really nice, and all those edges are nice and smooth, as you can see. Hi everyone, welcome. Ryan here from the London Craftsman channel. How are you? Today's video is all about doing some finger pulls on a set of doors. Got 10 doors to do. I'm aiming to do a finger pull like so, and you can see the profile of it. Okay, and as you can see, I've done quite a few test runs to get this right, just to make sure I'm happy. I'm using 18mm MDF. Going to use standard MDF on this at the moment. Got a nice sharp cutter, so when I am routering through or cutting through this, it's really nice and smooth. When you generally machine into MDF, it goes pretty fluffy and then it's a nightmare to paint. But on this occasion, because I'm using a nice fresh cutter, it's coming out nice and smooth. I'm happy with that. It's going to take a little bit longer to get those surfaces nicely painted. If I compare it to sort of MR MDF or any other fancy MDF that's a little bit more dense. Yeah, but I'm just using standard MDF and good to go. I've got my cutter set up. I'll go through what I'm using. I'm using the Trend CRT Mark III router table. I'm using the Trend C281 cutter. All this stuff's going to be in the description, so you can just buy the bits that I have if you need to. And the router I'm using is a T14 Trend, all Trends. I've got myself here a little gauge as well. It's a little Trend gauge just to work out the height of my cutter. That is all I'm using. So one more thing, I've got this CRT table. So it's only a diddy little thing, but it's perfect. I don't need to change it. It's got everything I need on it, but it's a little bit too small. Sean's on the bench over there. I don't want to get in his way. So I've got it set up on a Ketta workbench, which folds away. And it just gives me a nice working height. I quite like this. It was meant to be temporary, but it's working quite well. So these are the two size doors that I'm doing. Got 10 of the smaller versions. We prime one side. Well, I prime one side like an idiot. But yeah, and these are the longer doors. And yeah, I shouldn't have primed anything. I should have just waited until I machined, but oh well. I'm going to be running them through today. And yeah, we're going to get those handles routed in today. So one thing I need to be aware of on this job is that we've got pairs. Okay, so that's one pair. We've got 5 carcasses on this low level unit, so effectively 5 pairs. We need to get these handles in line. Okay, at the bottom, we're coming down 100mm to the start of the handle, and we're going to be having sort of like a 75mm handle length. So I've worked that out on the fence, okay? So to make your life a lot easier, I'm going to tell you some distances. So the height I've got this cutter set up to is 15.5mm, okay? The measurement we've got, if we're looking from the top with the blade facing me, okay, so from away from the fence, the distance we have got is 24.8mm, so 25mm would probably do you. Okay, so that's the distance away. Another measurement I did want to give you is, so we got the cutter this way round. So from the blade to the first line here, the actual line is 89, and from the blade to this line is 148. And then from the blade to this line here, 91. And from the blade to this line here is 146. So they are your actual overall sizes of your handles. Remember, we've got a 75mm overall handle from the front, not from this part. So from this tip to this tip is around 75, give or take. You may have to play around with these measurements ever so slightly, but that's something to start with, okay? Okay, so effectively we've got a left and a right-handed door. Okay, so they both don't work universally. So one side we're going to have to start on this fence, plunge our workpiece in at number 1 and move it across to number 2. And on this one here, we've got the same here. We're going to start at number 1 and move across to number 2. So we're going to do 5 of this and 5 of this of the smaller doors, and 2 and 2 of the bigger doors. So one thing to be aware of is as you're plunging, it will give you a slightly out of line or out of square plunge on the edges, okay? That's because as you're plunging in initially, you've got to start it with the tip up against the fence and then slowly push it in. Maybe not so much when you're finished because you can pull that out square. What I've done is I've worked out my overall distances on the bottom, so that's exactly what I want, but then I've marked in and inside those 2 lines to start. And once I've finished my cut, I'm then going to plunge it in once more to these lines just to square those up, okay? So what I'm going to do is just going to start machining the smaller doors. So I'm aiming to do these in one pass, okay? I could do it another method where I'm just plunging half depth, or I just use a flute cutter to take out some of the meat first. I'm happy just to do this in one pass. So I've got my pairs now. So there's my left hand doors and my right hand doors. We have a look underneath. We've just written what they are. So pointing down to the hinge side, okay, hinge, 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 hinge. So we know the hinges are on that side, okay. So that's why we mark the H. We put the arrow to the good edge. Again on this side as well, hinge, just so we got all the marks so we can't get it wrong. So we've got E, left hand door, door bottom, okay, D, left hand door, door bottom, etc. A, B, C, D, E. And again here, A, B, C, D, E. A's at the top, E's at the bottom, okay, so we're working our way through the part. This is right hand door. So what we need is our 2 doors are paired to be like so, and we're going to have our handle routed in here and they're going to match both sides, okay? So what I'm going to do quickly before I start doing anything is I'm just going to mark at the top of the door, just going to put a little scribble so I cannot get it wrong, okay? As I am machining these, I do not want to do it on the wrong end by accident. So I've just put a little squiggle at the top. It could be anything, but it's just for my own sanity, just so I know that I'm not going to get it wrong, okay? So with that known, and I've got my lefts and my rights, I can just go ahead and start machining these doors. So this is the part that we're going to be routing out, okay? So I'm going to flip that round, and we're going for the left hand here. Can you see I've got marks on this fence? Back a little bit. Yeah, we've got marks on this fence. That is for the right hand door, okay? On this one is the left hand door. So we've got number 1 and number 2. Okay, so we're just going to start with number 1 and work our way to number 2. But these 2 lines here are slightly in between these 2 lines, okay? Like I said before, it's because I want to just plunge it in, get the meat out, and then I'll just square those edges out after. Okay, left hand, we're going to just do all the left hands now. It's going to be a little bit dusty to start because as you're plunging in, a lot of the dust is going to want to come out. Move it out of the way, get rid of that dust, then plunge it again. I'm going to have my workpiece up against the fence first, and then I'm just going to keep it there, and I'm going to plunge in until this corner hits this number 1 line. Number 1 line, and I move it. Right, it's a little bit dusty now. I'm going to get rid of the dust. And that's what we got so far, but we need to make it bigger. So, I'm going to try and do a square plunge now. On my line here. And then pull it out square. So we've got a square shoulder now, okay, so it's not angled. This is why we had to plunge it in square on the second pass. Yeah, happy with that. Okay, so that's the left hand done. I'm going to show you a right hand, just so I can pair them up and show you what they're like as a pair. I'm not going to show you the whole entire job, but yeah.
Go for that piece there. And now we're going for this side, okay? Start number 1, work our way to number 2. Number 1, get it in. I've cleaned out the edge, gonna plunge it again. Gonna go to these lines now instead, because that's my exact lines. And plunge it in square. Yep.
Okay, so part of that I could have used stoppers, but I wouldn't have been able to have a stopper on the first plunge, okay, because it would have got in the way as I pushed it, but I could have had a stopper on the finish as I was pulling that workpiece out. So there is a little bit of trial and error on this, and you know, let's see how they both line up. Yeah, so we're not far off. Like I said, we may need to tweak them ever so slightly. Okay, so remember this is a little bit of freestyle element in there. This one just needs a little bit of squaring out ever so slightly. It's just a mill. But that is what we are going for. It's enough to get our fingers in now and open that door like so. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of the pack. Before I do, this is what they look like from the edge. So that is one pair done. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest. So there you go, guys, all done. All that needs to be done is sanding those little sharp edges off, and then I will most likely bring them back into the spray room and spray the insides. If that doesn't work, I'm going to just get a brush in there and brush some primer in there, but I'm sure the spray will get in there nicely to prime them up. These are going to need 4 coats at least, both sides anyway, so I'm sure by the time I've done that, it'll be finished. I've managed to get some paint on the doors, done both faces twice. I need to do one more coat, and I've done no special treatment on these handles with a roller or anything like that. The spray has done all of that. With the airless sprayers, they come out quite heavy, the paint, and so it does give you a helping hand when you are trying to get in these little crevices. They did have one hit front and back, and then I went round with the paper just to flatten the raised grain ever so slightly with P240, and then yeah, the extra coats went on, but it's turned out really, really nice, and all those edges are nice and smooth, as you can see. We've got a nice finish. We've got one more coat left to do, but so far so good, and it's the same on the other doors over there. So happy days with that. Really, really chuffed with the way they came out. So other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thumbs up if you have, like and subscribe. If you've got any questions, just leave them for me in the comments bar. All the items I've used are in the video description, so if you need to know what I've been using, you can check them out there. But other than that, guys, have a great rest of the day. See you next Sunday.